So Devil May Cry 5 came out almost 6 years ago now, and since the game came out, we haven't gotten any new updates or information or really anything about the next mainline game in the series. We got a mobile game, which I've never actually played, but from what I can tell is pretty goofy and leaves a lot to be desired. And we have a new Devil May Cry anime dropping sometime next year, but as far as a new mainline game, we've heard basically nothing. It's been pretty much complete silence. So in that time, I've come up with a lot of ideas for what I think would be some really awesome ideas to put into Devil May Cry 6. And maybe somebody watches this video who like helps develop these games. That would be amazing, because this video is basically my pitch for Devil May Cry 6. So this is going to be a much longer video, but I'm going to split it up into sections. And what I'm going to be talking about is my complete pitch for what Devil May Cry 6 should be, from the combat to the story to the characters to the setting to literally everything. And it's all just my opinions. Like, some of the stuff you might think is stupid, but personally, I think that all the stuff that I'm about to show you guys today would make for the greatest Devil May Cry game ever. So this video isn't going to be edited too heavily. It's just going to be me talking over like the most relevant footage I can find to what I'm talking about, which is mostly just going to be footage of me playing Devil May Cry 5. It's really the best thing I can think of to put as background footage, because I'm talking about a game that doesn't even exist. All right, so the main idea that I have for Devil May Cry 6 is making it a co-op game. But I'm less thinking about being able to play the game with a friend and more having single player fights where you can control two characters. The closest thing I can really compare this to is Arkham Knight. Now, if you ever played the game, you already know this, but there's sections in Arkham Knight where you play as both characters, kind of. And you don't play as them simultaneously. You press a button to switch between both characters, in this case, Batman or Robin. And I feel like this system is really cool and isn't really used that much in games. Like, I've never really seen this in any other games except for Arkham Knight. Like, there's the Lego games where you run around and then you like switch between two people. But I mean, like, actually in combat where you can switch between two characters seamlessly with the press of a button. Now, another mechanic that Arkham Knight has that would translate really well to a co-op Devil May Cry game is something called duel takedowns. Now, the way these work is that if you have your combo count high enough, which means you've hit enough enemies without being hit yourself, you get a prompt to do something called a duel takedown, which starts an animation, special move type thing where both characters work together to instantly destroy an enemy. Now, you can already see where I'm going with this. I feel like Devil May Cry would benefit from the system so much because it already has a combo system like that. It has a stylish rank. But I'm going to touch more on the duel takedowns later and specific examples of what I think would be really cool duel takedown animations. But I'm just kind of more talking about the main idea for the game right now. Another thing that could be made really interesting with co-op is platforming. For example, what if you're playing as Nero and he has a double jump and then like the glide with his wings, and that gets him to a certain area for him to be able to press a button, which lowers a platform for Virgil to jump on since he doesn't have a double jump. You could do like really creative kind of like platforming puzzles like that. But I don't know if this is really the best idea and would take away from the flow of the game, but it's something that could be added if you have co-op stuff and could be made really interesting. So now that I kind of have the main idea for what the game would be, I want to talk more in depth about what combat in this system would actually look like and some more really cool ideas, mostly taken from other games that I've played, which I personally think would be really cool to have in another Devil May Cry game. And I'm talking about these in no specific order. What would make me so happy is if Devil May Cry 6 had executions. So there's a game that I used to spend way too much time on called For Honor. It's just this medieval knights samurai fighting game. I know it looks cool, but like don't even play this game. It's fucking horrible. But one thing that this game has that's really cool is what's called executions. What this means for this game is that if you kill an enemy with a heavy attack, you get the face buttons as button prompts, and they're each tied to a different finisher animation that shows your character basically killing the other character, and some of them are really cool. I think it would be so awesome if Devil May Cry 6 had executions like this that you can use on the final enemy, that you bind to the different face buttons in the customized screen before you start a mission, and that you can purchase in the shop for red orbs. For example, what if you're playing as Virgil, you kill the final enemy, and then for a moment you get the button prompts Y, B, X, A, and they're tied to different executions. So you press Y, and then Virgil does one of his special moves from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as a reference to that game to finish off the final enemy.
Rest in peace.
I don't know how many each character would have, and maybe you would start off with 2 default executions for each character, one that you can do on the ground and one that you can do in the air. I'll talk more about what characters I would want to see in this game later. This is just about like the combat and stuff. But like, let's say you start off with 2 default ones, and then over the course of playing the game, you get red orbs, you can unlock more from the shop. So here's the 2 default executions that I would want to have for each playable character in this game. So for Virgil, I would want his default ground execution to be the one that I just showed you. Maybe it's called Rest in Peace, and it's that that hyper combo KO from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and it's basically just a reference to that game. You just slice the guy up a whole bunch of times, sheath the sword, it turns around, and the enemy just gets stabbed with a whole bunch of Mirage Blades. His other default execution for when he's in the air would be called To Hell and Back. So for this one, he would already be in the air. He would zip back down to the ground and use his sword to open up a portal on the floor. And you can see inside of this portal a little bit and see that it goes to the demon world. And then it'll say, go to hell, like how he says when he does Stinger. The demon falls down into that portal, and then Virgil puts his sword straight up in the air and then cuts another portal above himself. And this makes the demon fall back down through that portal onto his sword that he's holding straight up in the air. Then he flings his sword straight down, cutting the demon in half, and then he says, and come back. Then he'll swing his sword to like fling the blood off of it and then do a cool sheath. Dante's default ground execution would be called Collision. For this one, he would hop on Cavalier and then drive to the left off screen, and then you would be able to hear the motorcycle get quieter and quieter as he gets farther and farther away. Then it gets louder and louder as he approaches and then crashes through the enemy. This flings the enemy up into the air while Dante does a U-turn, and then as the enemy lands on the ground, he flips around the bike to put his back tire on the enemy's head, and the camera zooms in as he just grinds it up like. Then once he's all done, he does a quick donut with the bike, which just flings the enemy away and makes it disintegrate. Dante's default air execution would be called Quick Draw. This would be more of a cowboy themed one. Him and the enemy are already in the air, and he pulls back the slide on Ivory to make a round fall out of the chamber. Then he zips back down to the ground and does some weapon inspect kind of like this. Does some cool spin moves with it like a cowboy revolver. Then pulls back the slide again and catches the round that's falling from the sky in the gun, and then does a cowboy quick draw to headshot the demon and make it explode as it falls. Then he would say jackpot. For Nero, his default ground execution, I would want to just steal from Warden, a character in For Honor, the game I talked about earlier, where he drops his sword on the ground and just starts beating the guy with his fist. But instead of Warden realizing that he's losing control and stopping and then picking up his sword, Nero keeps going, punching the guy until the demon he's punching just explodes basically. And then he bends down and picks up his sword and then maybe flips it around and sheaths it back on his back. For Nero's default air execution, I think it would be really cool if he does like some crazy ground slam wrestling move, kind of similar to what he does to Virgil. If you catch him while he's flying with Buster Arm in the final boss fight of DMC 5, he does like this WWE ground slam move. And I want the main idea with Nero's execution to be that he has all this brute strength and he's like really physically strong. So a lot of his executions will be him like punching or like doing some wrestling moves or ground slams to the enemies. That's all I can really think of right now for the main three characters' executions. I feel like 2 each is a really good number to start with. And like I said, you just have a whole bunch of more that you can purchase for red orbs in the shop. So this section you're listening to right now, I recorded like weeks after I recorded the last part you just listened to. And since then, I played a lot more DMC 5. I was playing through mission 8 or maybe it was mission 7. I can't really remember. But one of those missions, 7, 8, or 9, is called like Converging Past or something. And you can choose whether you want to play as Nero or play as V. And at the end of that section, V and Nero end up meeting up. And what do you know? It's pretty close to what I just described earlier. You're playing as either Nero or V, and then the other one that you don't pick is kind of in the arena with you, fighting with you. So it's not too far-fetched to want a quote-unquote co-op game as Devil May Cry 6, because they kind of did something similar to it already. Just polish it some more, add some more interactions, make you be able to switch between both the characters during a fight. Imagine if more moves were added to the characters' movesets to kind of balance it and mold the gameplay around the fact that it's co-op and you're switching between 2 characters. Imagine the crazy combos you would be able to do. Playing as Dante and Virgil, you can launch the enemy up in the air as Virgil into Cavalier. Dante will throw him back down to the ground when you switch to Virgil and combo him some more. You can do probably the most insane, unimaginable combos that I can't even like think of right now or describe. It would open up the gameplay so much, and it would raise the skill ceiling and like the ceiling to be able to like do combos and express yourself so much higher. It would be insane. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about the co-op section. I do want to talk loosely about what I would want the story to be. Now, I'm not really the best story writer, so I'm just going to kind of give you guys like a loose kind of outline of what I think would be a good direction to take the story. And like, I know there's going to be some guys in the comments that are like, oh, actually, if you listen to the declassified, now lost in media Devil May Cry 2 audio drama CD, Devil May Cry 2 The Rise of Gru crossover with Digimon, none of what you're saying actually makes any sense. And it's like, okay, fine, but this is just my idea. All right, just listen. I think I mentioned earlier how Devil May Cry 5 sets up a co-op game perfectly because you have Dante and Virgil together in hell. What if they go down to hell? It's Dante and Virgil, They're in the demon world, and they have to fight their way out. And they're going down there. They have to cut the roots of the Qliphotht and end it. They go down there, and there's a new antagonist waiting for them, right? Like, it would make no sense, right? You would have to write up a justification of blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Maybe, like, there's, like, traces of Urizen left, and he, like, turned into a new being, or I don't know. You can write something. They literally wrote Virgil splits himself in half into two separate beings, and one is evil, and one is, like, some emo guy. Like, dude, you can write anything. Like, you can write a way. They'll write a way to make it make sense. But Dante and Virgil, they're in the demon world. They're seemingly trapped there. There's an explanation for why Virgil can't just use the Yamato to exit. Write up some like plot explanation. They learn of a way that they can escape and come back to the human world from the demon's headquarters. Think of all the crazy locations there could be. You could have like these crazy like nether fortress, like Minecraft areas and giant castles and buildings. There's already so much crazy like concepts in the backgrounds. I remember Eliza made a video a couple months ago about like these crazy like faces and like totems and stuff in the background. The locations that are here could be something incredible and just super interesting. You could have all new enemy types with the explanation of like, oh, they just send the weaker demons out to just do all of the dirty work. The stronger, like the leader demons, are here in the demon world. So you can get all new enemy types that are way stronger, have way more complexity, because you have so much more tools at your disposal to fight them now, because you have co-op. You literally are controlling two characters at once, and make it so that there's a new antagonist down there waiting for them, a new ruler of the demon world. Who ruled over the demon world after Mundus died? Who picked up the slack? Maybe there's other half demon, half human people that Dante and Virgil don't know about. Just like how Dante discovered Nero. What if they're evil? What if they want to use the portal that Urizen opened to send more demons through and take over the entire universe? What if they have new abilities and forms that Dante and Virgil never even seen before? What if they're even stronger than them? And the only way that Dante and Virgil can hope to defeat them is if they go through some character development and fight them together. That's my basic outline for the story. Now, I mentioned Nero being playable in this game. Honestly, I have no idea what to really do with Nero in this story. Maybe Nero is having some kind of adventures on the human world, and like you go back and forth between Nero and like Dante and Virgil. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't really like that concept at all. That gives me like distracting from the main character I actually want to play as vibes. That gives me playing as Atreus and God of War Ragnarok vibes. Maybe they can make Nero's combat super cool, or maybe like have some way for him to be in the same location as Dante or Virgil. But I don't know. I think it should just be a Dante and a Virgil game, and Nero should just take a backseat. Maybe he could be like in a DLC. I don't know. Even that sounds kind of stupid. I have no idea what to do with Nero. What I think could be a better idea instead is have Dante and Virgil in the demon world, and then have Nero, Lady, and Trish in the human world, right? So you can get like the same co-op thing going on. Maybe you can choose between two of those characters, so you can still kind of keep the same co-op gameplay going on. Or maybe that's too ambitious, having like 5 playable characters all having interactions with each other. Maybe it's too ambitious. But yeah, that's my basic like idea, like outline for what the story would be and like what like the explanation would be for any of it. Devil May Cry 5, the ending with Dante and Virgil just being in the demon world already sets this up so well. So yeah, that's basically it for that section. Next, I want to talk about just some miscellaneous stuff that I would want to see in this game, like some quality of life changes, just some stuff that I kind of wish was in Devil May Cry 5 but could be put into a new game. We'll start off with the quality of life changes first. Number 1, Nero's Devil Breakers should show the battery life. Like, there's no reason that there can't be a little white bar above the Devil Breaker icon that shows how close it is to breaking. You could use the argument of like, oh, they take so long to break anyway, you don't really need a bar, it doesn't really matter. Well, if it doesn't really matter, then there's no reason there shouldn't be a bar there. Also, I think it would be a pretty cool gimmick if the Devil Breaker super move, the one that destroys the breaker, was a more powerful version of that move if that battery bar was full. Another idea I thought of that might be broken is, what if you could use the Exceed system to charge up that bar to kind of like recharge the breakers? Like, what if you do Exceed, and then instead of using that like flame to like power up your attack, what if you can like channel that into the breaker somehow and like fill up the battery life and repair it? But I could see how that could be pretty broken. You just keep one Devil Breaker forever. There's no point in having any other ones if you can do that, really. Also, I know switching breakers is a little bit broken. There's mods that let you do that. Apparently it's super broken. Instead, I think it would be really cool if you could switch what your next breaker would be after this one gets destroyed. Like, let's say you have have Tomboy, you have Gerbera next. It would be cool if you can switch Gerbera to the Buster Arm next. You can just switch the next one. It would give you a little bit more flexibility than just starting the mission with that set row of Devil Breakers. You can't change the order or anything. It's just stuck like that. If you want a specific Devil Breaker that's toward like the middle, you have to just break like the next 3 to get to it. It's a little bit annoying. It also would be pretty cool if the Exceed on Nero's sword had little projectiles that fly off of it. This is a really like repressed memory, but I remember there was this shooter called Paladins, and there was this one character, this like Asian dude with some fire sword, and he didn't even have a gun. He would just use the sword and like fling the sword, and fire would come off of it in kind of a streak projectile. I'll put some gameplay up of it on screen of what I'm thinking of if I can find it. It would be cool if when you use Exceed on Nero, it does that basically, you know, give you a little bit more range options besides just blue rose. Another one is it would be really cool if there was a Power Glove Devil Breaker, like, you know, the Nintendo Power Glove. I know that's like a completely different company, and I know there's no shot of that happening because that's not like a Capcom owned property, so there's no shot, but that would be cool, like Power Glove Devil Breaker. Some more miscellaneous stuff is it would be really cool if Virgil had a move with his Mirage Blades where he could kind of like drop the swords down from the sky and then make kind of like a little prison around the enemies, and they kind of holds them in place for a bit. That would be pretty sick. It also would be really cool if Virgil's summon swords were a lot bigger, like not little daggers, but like actually the size of big swords like they were in Devil May Cry 4. I don't know why they made them into little daggers in 5. There's a mod that fixes it and makes them bigger. It would be cool if his Judgment Cut end actually looked like the Judgment Cut end that you see in the boss fight. The Judgment Cut end that Virgil uses in the boss fight, and a lot of his animations actually are different than the ones that you actually do in the game, like once Virgil becomes a playable character. For example, like I'll put it on screen. This is what the boss Judgment Cut end looks like compared to the normal one. It just looks a lot more flashy. There's a mod that lets you use the one the boss version, just like there's a mod for everything in this game. It also would be cool if there is a emote or a taunt. Everybody keeps getting mad at me for saying emote. It's a taunt where Virgil takes his jacket off and like throws it on the ground like Piccolo, and then he's in like his tank top. Like if you didn't know, he has a tank top underneath his jacket. It's not a shirt underneath. I think that's a pretty cool detail. And then it's kind of like an alternate costume for Virgil, you know, and the jacket just kind of lays on the ground there until he, you know, you walk back over it and he picks it up and puts it back on in a separate animation. Kind of similar to in Devil May Cry 5, there's actually a cool little Easter egg where if you hold down left on the D-pad for Gunslinger, Dante will just take one of the rocket launchers and just put it in the ground, and you could just have one rocket launcher again. And you can do the whole rest of the stage like that. You can just leave it there forever until you come back and pick it up. Kind of similar to that, but just as a rare like triple S emote. That would be really sick. Another quality of life change would be different music. I know there's a lot of different music in the game. The game has like a really extensive soundtrack, but I feel like when I'm playing Devil May Cry 5, I'm hearing the same battle themes over and over and over. It feels like at literally every encounter I'm playing as Virgil, or if I'm playing as Dante, I hear Subhuman at every single fight. And I've heard the first 30 seconds of these songs so many times they're actually burnt into my brain. What's even worse is Bloody Palace. And Bloody Palace, you hear it, Bury the Light plays every floor. I think at the beginning you just hear the first 15 seconds of Bury the Light so many times because you're clearing the floors so fast at the beginning because the enemies are so weak. It's insane. Like there needs to be some variation here. Please, guys, if you put Bloody Palace in Devil May Cry 6, which you really should, please just make it so there's one track that plays over top of the whole thing, and that track like changes depending on like what section of the Bloody Palace you're on. Please don't make it the same song that resets every floor. But yeah, it would be cool if there was some more music variation. Maybe get Noise Cream to make some music for the game. Noise Cream is amazing. Maybe get some music that sounds like this. Or maybe something that sounds like this. Like imagine Dante and Virgil fighting waves upon waves of demons together while this plays in the background. Dante's riding Cavalier around the arena like and you have Virgil with his Yamato who's like I'm sorry, I'm so autistic, oh my god. You can have music like this too. Just having some other music, just some more variation would be so good. Like, I like the themes. I like them too. They're amazing, but I've heard them so many times just from playing the game normally. We need something else. We need Noise Cream! hire him. So all this daydreaming is cool, but what are we most likely actually going to get for the next Devil May Cry game? Now, a few things that I'm going to show you in a second, and it's most likely going to be a Devil May Cry 1 remake or a much different kind of game. My personal prediction that I'll tell you guys about later. So Itsuno left Capcom to work on his own stuff. Somebody else actually returned to working on games for Capcom pretty recently. Hideki Kamiya, Devil May Cry's original creator. And right now he's at Capcom working on a sequel to a game called Okami that I know literally nothing about, but it's about some type of dog or something. I don't know. And in early 2024, he talks about how we would want to make a Devil May Cry 1 remake when he comes back to Capcom. And we know how much Capcom loves making remakes of the Resident Evil games, so why not try out making a remake for its sister series, Devil May Cry? But I have a gut feeling that Kamiya won't want to use the same super realistic art style and might want to go back to a more anime-like, non-realistic look like how his games were. Which leads me into my prediction that I made on stream earlier today.
I hope the next Devil May Cry game is Devil May Cry 6 and not a remake. I know it's going to be a Devil May Cry 3 remake though. I just know it. Maybe the gameplay will be cool. I'm going to make a prediction. Boss, clip this. Alright? Boss, clip this. I'm making a prediction right now. What day is it? It's January 6th, 2024. Here's my prediction, right? The next Devil May Cry game is going to be cartoony. It's not going to be in the same art style. It's going to be like a cartoony kind of Switch game. Like a Nintendo Switch game. Or something on some Nintendo system. Right? It's going to be a game where Dante and Virgil are like chibi or something in like the cutesy RE engine, like the one they used for Rise. And it's going to be like a Nintendo game, like Rise was. And then it's going to be out for a year, and it's going to get ported to Steam. That's my prediction. I hope somebody clipped that. Because when that time comes, you guys are going to be like, wow. Zero knew the whole time. Zero knew all along.
Alright guys, so that's my pitch, if you will, for Devil May Cry 6. It's kind of just a collection of ideas. You know, I hope this video was like good, and I hope it isn't like a unorganized mess. Also, join the Discord server. There's a link in the description. And follow me on Twitter. I tweet funny memes. And yeah, that's basically it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Stay safe out there, stay motivated, and stay silly.